and welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a classic and delicious carrot cake with cream cheese icing for you, and we're going to do both of those recipes in this video. Now before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that we have an affiliate link with Chef's Temp. If you need a kitchen thermometer or meat probe, please check out the link in the description below and use your code LOVEYOURFOOD on checkout for 15% off your order. We also have a Patreon if you'd like to support us there and help us keep the lights on. I'll put a link for that as well, and here's our ingredients. We have a carrot, some butter, some spices. We've got some clove, some nutmeg, and some ground cinnamon, some eggs, some salt and baking powder, some walnuts, some raisins, some vanilla extract, some cinnamon, crushed pineapple, just canned crushed pineapple, some cream cheese. We're using some date syrup, some neutral oil, some powdered sugar, some regular granulated sugar, and some flour. So the first thing we're going to do is toast our walnuts. And we're going to use walnuts in a few different ways for this recipe. The next step is going to be we're going to grate our carrot. And of course, this is going to provide the bulk of this recipe. It's carrot cake after all. Now we're looking for a particular, all of the amounts are going to be in the description below. We're looking for a particular volume of carrots, so we're just going to make sure they're just loosely packed, not really tightly packed in the measuring cup. And once we've got enough, we're going to pop those into a bowl. And we're going to mix that in with our sugar. Now, traditionally, this is with brown sugar. And it wants you to have it sit for a few hours mixed together with the brown sugar, which sort of gets some of the liquid to come out of the carrots. We're using date syrup. You can also use maple syrup, whatever you prefer. And it didn't need to sit that long because the liquid comes out of the carrots. We're going to be using all of that, of course. But because as you macerate the sugar with the carrots, some of the liquid comes out of the carrots and really provides a lot of the moisture for this recipe, along with, of course, the oil. So we are going to add in our spices, the sugar, the baking powder, and both kinds, and the salt as well. And that's just going to get all mixed together with the flour. And this is going to be, of course, the dry component plus the granulated sugar. And once it's all well combined, you can just set that aside while you're waiting for your carrots to, release all the liquid that they're supposed to. Once you're ready to start mixing things together, we're going to drain the crushed pineapple. Now, we used some of the juice of this pineapple in the recipe we made for the pineapple plum sauce last week. But we're going to use some of the actual crushed pineapple first. We're going to mix that in with the carrots. You can see some of the juices have already come out of the carrots around the edges. You can see it's a little bit liquidy underneath. And we're just going to mix that pineapple in there. And again, this is going to provide some of that beautiful moisture in there. And, that really nice sweetness that pineapple brings. So now we're going to start getting our container prepared. Now, we made this into a bunch of little mini loaves, almost like muffins. So what we're going to do is make sure that each of our little muffin tins, our little mini loaf pans here, are perfectly coated with some butter and some flour. We are going to chop up a portion of our walnuts. Now, we're going to use walnuts again later for topping, but there's also walnuts in the cake. So now it's time to get everything mixed together. So we've got our eggs in the bowl. We're going to whisk those together just a little bit to get started. And you want to make sure they're good and combined. You want to make sure they're nicely whipped together. You don't want to incorporate too much air or anything, but you don't want them to be, you don't want to have to mix them with all of this other bulk in there. It's still just a little more complicated to do it that way. So in goes our carrot mixture and the oil. And we're just going to mix this until everything is well combined. So you don't want any big chunks of carrot that doesn't have any egg in it. You don't want any lumps of egg in there, or you'll get like a lump of scrambled egg in your carrot cake. We're going to add in the raisins. Now we're using rum-soaked raisins. You can do whatever you like, but we do recommend that you soak them in something. You want to rehydrate them a little bit somehow. And in goes our vanilla extract. Now we're out of vanilla paste right now, so all we've got left is the extract. So we're just going to make sure that that's all well combined as well. And then once we've got that all mixed together, we're going to put aside the whisk, because at this point it's going to start getting sort of caught in the whisk. And we're going to add in our dry ingredients. Now, it's a big... the ratio from wet ingredients to dry ingredients for a carrot cake is pretty off from most cake batters. It's a very, very loose batter, except that most of the bulk of the wet ingredients is solid carrot. So it ends up not being all that loose. We're going to add in our chopped toasted walnuts. And once again, we're just going to make sure that's all well combined. And at this stage, because we're using baking powder and because we're using some ingredients here that we don't want to sit around for too long, we need to move a little bit quickly at this point. Once everything's combined, you don't want to overmix it and make too much gluten, although that's a little difficult when there's so little flour in there, but because there's so much moisture, it is possible. So you just want to make sure it's all well combined, and then immediately you want to get that into your cake pan. And you certainly want to make sure at this point that your oven is already preheated, and you want to try and get the batter into all the corners of the, in this case, the mini loaf pan. But if you're using a regular cake pan, you also want to make sure it's getting to all the corners. And you do want to clean off the top as well. Otherwise, you get those little burnt bits that aren't ideal. So once that's set, you're going to put that into your preheated oven. And we're going to bake that until it is done. So once those come out, you can see they've domed up a little, they've darkened a bit, they've got that great color on them. The date syrup actually adds a really great flavor, and it does darken nicely when it cooks. As usual, you put in a skewer, and if it comes out clean, you are good to go. So while that's cooling, we're going to put together our cream cheese icing, which is very simple. So it's cream cheese, butter, and the powdered sugar. And once again, all the ingredients are going to be in the description below. And we prefer to mix this with our spatula. We're going to add a little bit of vanilla in there as well. Once again, you don't necessarily want to use a whisk for this because it will get caught in the whisk and make life a little more difficult. And honestly, it comes together incredibly quickly with just a spatula. Now you can see here we did skip the step where you sift the the powdered sugar. So there are a couple of lumps in there. It's fine. Those will sort of work their way out. So once we're ready to go, we're actually going to refrigerate that for just a few minutes until the cakes come down to room temperature, which gives us time to toast and chop a few more walnuts. Now this is all for decoration at this point. The cream cheese icing's been in the fridge, so it's a little stiffer, you can see here. So you just want to cream it a little bit to make sure it moves again. And then with an offset spatula, this is sort of the easiest way to top your little mini cakes here. So we're just going to pop that on top. And if you want, you can pop one of the walnuts, like the intact walnut halves on top, and then just roll it around in your chopped walnuts and get a nice coating on top. And that looks great. Honestly, that's fine. It's a really easy way to do it. If you want to do it a little more fancy, you can do it this way. So we're going to straighten out the sides. So like with most mini loaf pans, the sides are slightly sloped. So we're just going to cut that until it's nice and square, and then cut it lengthwise down the middle, so turning it into a layer cake basically. You can see all those great fillings inside, those rum-soaked raisins. The carrot is visible in there. You get those nice chunks of walnut as well. So we're going to add a layer of frosting in the middle, and then we're going to turn it over and add another little layer of frosting on top. If you want, you could even add a little soak to your little mini layers here. We used rum on some of ours, and you could do whatever you prefer. And then just add a couple of walnuts on top, and that's it. Really, really simple. It takes a little bit of time. You do need to wait for a few things to happen for this recipe. You do need to let those carrots sit with the sugar for a bit. But it is a classic, it is delicious, and we hope you'll give it a try. If you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. We'd like to thank our patrons over on Patreon. If you'd like to support us there, I'll put a link in the description below. And remember to love your food.